What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Master Crafted. Phil and I just had a great weekend at LVO. Feel like we did pretty well, and we just kind of wanted to go over how the event went for us and just some thoughts on, the change of venue and all that stuff. Give a quick recap. Phil, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, Lane. I've recovered. We had a nice relaxing time getting back. Thankfully, we didn't have to rush anything because we didn't make the final on purpose. That way we didn't have to rush around or change some flights. So we didn't make the cut for the shadow round, but it's okay. We did that on purpose, so we could just enjoy our Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, it definitely helped. Take the extra Sunday, just relax in Vegas. I sat by the pool and just recuperated. I felt nice, man. I feel refreshed, ready for more 40K in like 3 weeks for me. But I know you're ready to go. You're ready to start grinding some games for the upcoming teams event. But yeah, let's dive into it. What were your thoughts about the change to LVO this year?
Yeah, so I'm going to preface this for all our listeners and for FLG and for all the individuals that are part of the community that this is feedback. And we have to be okay with accepting feedback because in this day and age, we all care about this hobby significantly. Lane and I care about it. Our community cares about it. And we want to give this feedback because we want to see an event like LVO continue to be successful. And we want it to be a mainstay of competitive 40K across the globe because people travel from all over the world to play 40K at LVO. And it's, a great experience because we're talking about the best players in the country and the world that come here. And it's, the culmination of our rankings and all of those things. So it's a great event that we really, really want to see successful. To say all that, and it's really important that we're going to give some relatively strong and hopefully impactful feedback that Lane and I and the individuals that we've talked to see as something that we want to see changed, because at the end of the day, we want people to want to go to LVO and we want that to be the highlight of their 40K experience, because for a lot of people, you're spending a lot of money to go. You're spending a lot of time. You're taking time off work. You're building, you're painting, you're buying models. You're doing all these things to get ready for this tournament. And we want the tournament to be that reflection of what 40K is all about, even at the highest competitive level. So first and foremost, the venue. It was a change of venue this year. So we moved from the Rio to the Williams Center, or whatever it is. It's off of Fremont Street. So it's not in main downtown Vegas, which is perfectly fine. I like it a little bit because it means that you have a little bit more reasonable rates, but there is no housing or lodging in the building. FLG did a great job in terms of providing a shuttle that ran all 3 days to get back and forth to the venue from it was right outside of the Golden Nugget, so right on pretty much Fremont Street. You're able to hop on the shuttle for free, get over there, and get to the venue. They also provided free parking, which was fantastic as well. So both of those things right off the bat, I was pleasantly surprised that they took care of those things and they thought about those things. I didn't have to worry about an Uber or, for the few individuals that drove, sharing a ride, we were able to get there and back incredibly well. And I appreciated that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I did really appreciate, it's so much easier to just get there with the free transportation, and even considering how many people they had going, it seemed like they had enough staffed to keep it running fairly quickly, and not have large wait times as far as getting there and back. But yeah, the new venue versus the Rio, way less crowded. There's not a huge casino floor. You're not trying to work around all these other gamblers and stuff as you're trying to go get lunch and stuff like that. It was just the venue.
Yep. They had coffee set up there. They had, a little breakfast station. They had access to alcohol in the venue hall, which was nice. Now, in regards to the venue hall, a check-in. Well, I will say just another shout out as well. Check-in went incredibly smoothly.
Yes.
For those that have gone to LVO in the past, I've seen the lines out the wazoo to get checked in early, to the point that Lane and I this past year, we volunteered to help set up early and set up terrain because we were I just want to register early. So we'll come help set up terrain, do all those things because we're man, that line is obnoxious. It is bad. So I think the check-in went a lot smoother. Now we're talking about a quarter of the number of people. So there is, hey, what's going to happen when we do have back to hopefully that, 2,000 number mark. But overall, check-in went a lot smoother. Now, the venue hall is not carpeted. It is concrete, and it is incredibly large. And every single game was in the same halls. Like Kill Team was in there, 40K was in there, Age of Sigmar was in there, Star Wars was in there, Warcry was in there. All the games that were at LVO were in the same hall. They had a slightly covered area, like half of it was slightly covered, and then the other had a very large open area. The amount of noise in there, just trying to communicate with your opponent, that was incredibly loud. There was no, muting of the noise, especially when you got to the other half of the venue. It was incredibly loud. Obviously, when you have that many players, like, I'm even more concerned if you try to pack 2,000 players in there. Like, what is that going to sound like? Especially with all the other, teams and players. Like, is that going to be able to fit what you had at the Rio? I genuinely don't know, because it was quite loud.
Yeah, it was. And I think that was one of the other things, just as far as the way the space was laid out. The expo hall was also in there. All the vendors, everybody like that was also in the same room. And one of the things I just felt like, getting into the feedback side of things, I really felt like they should have put the PK Championships tournament on the front half, which was larger. It was more open. One of the things, the big difference that we noticed from the Rio was, like, there was no stage, there was no screen. Like, this is their first year, right? They're transitioning. That was provided at the last event, but I think that would be a very nice upgrade to make of their own, so we could go back to kind of having that, like, a little bit more of, like, the grandeur, make more of a spectacle of it. Like, it just kind of felt like, as we were there, like, their PA system wasn't working, you couldn't hear. I would just, like, somebody be like, oh, pairings are up, and we just have all been to enough tournaments that we know what to do, right? But there wasn't really much fanfare throughout, like, the entire tournament. I mean, we still had good games, we still had fun. Like, it's not like, oh my god, this is horrible. But, like, that definitely adds to kind of the feel of, like, the super major big event that is LVO, or at least has been. So, that's one of the things we would like to see going into next year is, they can move it back to the higher, more open side within the venue, to where people can actually see up to an actual stage. We had the preview last January when they did LVO and stuff, and they had the show. We could all go and sit down and watch that, and that was really cool. Like, it just feels, it adds to the event. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things we'd like to see it go back to a little bit more as they get settled into this new venue.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you kind of hinted at it there, but, like, at the beginning of the tournament, we were all just standing there, like, waiting for something. And it was like, I got a notification on my phone, pairings are up. And it was like, oh shit. Okay. I guess we're going. Like, this is what we're, no one said anything. No one did anything. There was no, like, welcome to LVO. Like I said, this is for some people, I talked to people that they only have gone to LVO. This was their second tournament, and their first tournament was last year's LVO. Lane and I have gone to a lot of 40K tournaments, so we are familiar with that whole process. Not everyone is. And if you're going to ask people to travel from all over the country and all over the world to this, like, this needs to be a spectacle that you are proud of at the end of the day, because you put on a great show. And that has been the case in years past. So yeah, I would agree, Lane. Like, you have to do stuff like that. It can't just be another corporate, like, 9 rounds of 40K that you're just like, okay, you paid your money, come play your 40K, and then when you're done, like, get out of here. No, that's not what 40K is. Like, we want people to come and really enjoy their experience. So you got to do a little bit of the extra for it. And, as we said, if you don't do those things, especially for a tournament like this, people won't go to it, because it is like, hey, it's just another, super major. Well, I can go to a super major closer to home and not have to pay to go to Vegas. And that's a little bit more valuable cost-wise for them. Okay, what next? So let's talk about missions. We'll talk about how we did overall, but LVO chose the same 3 layouts for day 1 and day 2. So 3 layouts, same deployment, hammer and anvil for day 1, which blew my freaking mind, because I'm like, that is not a common deployment. There are some armies that can incredibly abuse that, and there's some armies that can't. And I don't understand why the largest GT in the United States has to have the same 3 deployments for the same day. Even if you have the same terrain layout and you just change the deployment, right? There's recommended for a reason. You could have the same layout and change the deployment, so at least there's some variation. I personally did not like that. I think, especially hammer and anvil, like, that one is, I hate it. Weird. I hate it so much.
Just weird.
Yeah. And they did the same thing for day 2. It was all the same layout, all the same deployment. The only thing that changed was the mission. So Yeah, I would recommend differently. And then on top of that, this is going to sound very nitpicky, but because they didn't have enough terrain, like some terrain had to be reversed in terms of which way the L's were oriented and the coordination on the layouts and all that stuff. And it's like, now we have two different experiences in terms of, okay, I got lucky enough to get on the right layout that the terrain doesn't need to be flipped versus the orc terrain, which from experience I played on twice day 2, had to be the reversed orientation versus what it should have been if we followed the layout correctly.
Yeah, and that makes such a huge deal, right? Like the whole part of layout 4 is it's got the 2 angled no man's land ruins that you can just kind of see into. And when
Yeah.
you flip that one, that completely changes how that layout plays. And sure, it might be for both players, but like that's not the expectation, right? Like people are building lists that go, okay, cool. Well, I know for a fact you can't stage anything in that ruin without me being able to shoot it, right? And I would like to be able to operate as such. And that is definitely one of the downsides of having terrain that's a little bit inflexible or at least can't actually match what is in the packet.
Yeah, and I understand like they had it in the packet saying, hey, if you're on this terrain layout, you're gonna have to flip it. But it's like I think there was 3 different types of terrain. You have like the GW Classic, and then the Orc terrain, and then the other set, the Cathedral Ruins or whatever. So you had a 1 in 3 chance of being, or 2 in 3 chance of being on the right orientation versus the wrong orientation, quote unquote wrong orientation. It is, like you said, balanced for the same people, but I don't want to have to deal with that, guys. I just want the same layout at every table so I know what to expect. I don't want like it to be a coin flip for me going to that table and seeing what we're going to get. So, I'm a big stickler on terrain. I want that to be standardized. I want it to be the same across the board. And I do want some variation in layouts and deployments. I don't want the same thing over and over again. Yes, is it annoying to like reset up layout terrain between rounds? It is, especially when you're on a time crunch. I get that. Totally understand. But you could have changed the deployments that would have given us a little bit of variation. And I don't understand the infatuation with Hammer Anvil. It is my least favorite of the deployments.
No, I agree. And I feel like there's only 2 ways to respond to this. Maybe next year they're going to switch, maybe it's one layout all day 1. That's fine with me as long as it's 3 different deployments. Or GW is just going to double down. We're playing Dawn of War all day, or FLG is doubling down. We're playing Dawn of War all day 1, just on layout 3. And then we're playing Sweeping Engagement all day 2. Right? We're taking it back. We're going classic. And I feel like that's really the only 2 correct responses to this.
I changed my mind. Any long edge deployment, I don't consider those actual deployments, but those I hate the most. And then it's Hammer and Anvil, and I'll take everything else, but just long edge stuff I don't even consider deployments. It's just did not enjoy that personally. Okay, Lane, let's talk about the vendor hall because we have some strong ties to that. It's one of the experiences that makes an event like LVO great because you can go there and you can get Games Workshop's exclusives. You can go see vendors that are crafting things for 40K, and you have great artists and they're doing all this stuff. But come to find out, they didn't, like when we first got there on Friday, like we got there early enough and we go over to the vendor hall and it's closed. I was like, that's weird. The event starts in like 30 minutes. Why would the vendor hall be closed? Well, the vendors weren't allowed to get in until 10 o'clock apparently, and they were done before the round finished. So like we were playing 40K, which is the largest pool of individuals, and we would never have had time, a reasonable time, between trying to get lunch or trying to get ready for your next pairings to actually go and shop and spend money. Because I know that's what the vendors want. They want us to come over and interact and talk and buy things, and I know plenty of players did as well. But when the vendor hall doesn't open up until after the round starts and then it closes before the round finished, that doesn't necessarily make sense to me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I know some of the guys in our group even just like they had to make it a point on Sunday to go back, and some of the vendors weren't even like really they shut their booth down after Saturday. They were just like, yep, we sold what we had, we're good, and so I do think that is a major point, whether it's just making sure either I would always advocate for probably before, just because by the time you get done with all 3 rounds, most people are just ready to head back and stuff. But like if we're there at 8 and we're waiting, that's the perfect time. When I show up to an event, if I forgot something, I need to buy it before my first game, right? So like
Yeah.
that would just logically be like, hey, let's make sure these people who are selling, deployment zone markers, tape measures, whatever it is, objective markers, they're just there and open and ready to go. So that way they can actually, make some sales on us people who play the games and totally forget to bring our crap, right? Like abuse
Yeah.
us and our problems.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We are so happy to support all of you vendors, and a big shout out to Remdeck, who made the trek all the way out to Las Vegas from here locally. Huge thanks to him. Has done a lot for the channel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Lane, we played 6 rounds of 40K. We were, on our feet all days. They, like I said, LVO did a great job getting us in and out. We definitely appreciate all those things. I could say something about the prices, like $10 for a beer is pretty wild. But overall, they had decent access to food, which was nice. They had like a kiosk in the back that had access to like Chick-fil-A and pizzas and drinks and coffee and energy drinks and all those things, which was great and not unseen, right? I appreciate all those things and be able to have access to all that stuff, access to water fountains, access to good bathrooms. Like, it's the little things that make a difference, and those things were definitely top notch with the facilities, so we definitely appreciate those. When we talk about fanfare, one of the things that we appreciate about LVO is like the little trinkets they give you. And this may sound super nitpicky because we got the pin, we got all that stuff, but every year I've gotten a metal LVO coin. And this was the first year that I didn't get one. Like they didn't walk around and hand them out or anything like that. And I was like, man, I was kind of expecting a metal LVO coin. I don't know. Like I get it. They're expensive, especially when you're crafting them for, 500 or 2,000 people, but I always appreciated it. I use it. Like I use my LVO coins for like marking my oath of moment or, marking, my combi weapon lieutenant or whatever I'm using it for. I just like having them because they're kind of a reminder of my experience. And we didn't get those this year. So it may sound kind of nitpicky, but I liked having them, and I kind of missed not getting one.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It didn't go unnoticed, and yeah, Phil's pockets are lighter, and he is a sad boy for it. Yeah, I think that's really all I have. It's not really feedback. I guess it's just like for you, the listener, and for myself. Like, I think the next time I go, I'm gonna just try to get enough people to have an Airbnb and drive if it's at that venue, like Fremont Street, and being able to go do stuff down there is still fun, but really free parking, like we could just rent a car and go. I think that's probably going to be cheaper, especially for a larger group. I think that's probably going to be what they trend towards in general, if they stay at that venue, because I think it's just cheaper. And our hotel didn't have a microwave, so cooking was very limited. So I'm definitely not making that mistake again. But yeah, Phil, let's talk about how we did this weekend. We'll start with you. How'd you do?
Yeah, I went 5-1. Pretty pleased. The only downside was I lost game 1, so I had to climb my way back out. It was definitely disappointing to lose game 1. It happens. I played a great opponent. His name is Jonathan Lee. I went into his Awakened Dynasty Necrons with 1,500 points of characters. So he had like the triple score peck destroyer characters, and the Psychomancers and Illuminator Xeris and all that stuff. And to be honest, I was not afraid of any list. That list I did not want to see for one specific reason. Because the characters can stand back up, it means that, one, I don't know which is going to stand back up. I'm making a guess at which one I think is going to be most impactful for me. My combat isn't necessarily good enough with Deathwatch to go into those. And that means I have to put out an additional asset to trade to potentially deny my opponent if they choose to stand back up at a certain location. So for silly things like area denial, or let's see what else, like cleanse, or anything that requires me to control it at the end of the turn or at the end of the shooting phase, right? Like any of those things that require those actions to complete and I have to control it or whatever, those destroyers make it a lot more difficult, or those characters make it a lot more difficult to do. And then on top of that, the Psychomancers just being able to point 18 inches, no line of sight required bird at -1 to be like, you take a battle shock, you take a battle shock. And it's just like, okay, 3 battle shocks, well, I'll fail one eventually. And if that's on an objective that I control or anything like that, it can be frustrating. So like, not to give a full recap, but because of its hammer and anvil, and my opponent went first, he was able to walk characters out onto all 3 objectives and then just be like, okay, can you kill my 3 characters? And it's like, I don't want to expose that much into this matchup. And even if I do kill all 3 characters, okay, one's going to stand back up. How do I deal with that one that stood back up? Yeah, incredibly frustrating list, and not what I want to see. And I lost by 2. It was a very close game, and overall, it was a great tournament. I was able to win out the rest and play some great opponents. But yeah, I was happy with my tournament. It was my first time going 5-1 at LVO. I did have a goal of 6-0, but I think Jack Harpster and all those Art of War guys, they made a comment about it, and I think Michael Mann as well. One of our good buddies, Michael Mann, said it on his podcast: is there's no such thing as a consistent 6-0 player. You will lose games, you will drop games. So expecting 6-0 and going 5-1, I think is perfectly respectable. A lot of people would significantly struggle, so I have to appreciate what I got.
Yeah, no, crushed it, man. You did super well, and who would have thought? Deathwatch is good now, man. I don't know if you heard. I got second this weekend, bro. I got second.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. It's good. I went 5-1 as well. I lost my 4th game into Eldar, and it was like the round I didn't want to see them the most. I feel like I would have been a little bit better seeing them day 1. It's still not a good matchup. I don't really like Eldar in general as a guard player, but having to play on Search and Destroy, where they are like, I'm a pretty mobile army, but like I'm not Eldar mobile. Like I can't take up the board that quickly or that safely when they can just reach out and touch whatever they want, especially with some of the strong staging positions that they had on layout 4. I ended up having to also go first, and so I took some risks. They did not pay off, and then I lost 3 Dorns very quickly, and I was like, you know what, sir? We'll just call it. I didn't think this was like, I had to take some risks. It didn't happen, and I was just like, sick. Great opponent, though. Olivas from Smite Club, super cool guy, did very well, ended up making top 16 himself. So that makes me feel a little bit better, on the inside, losing to not only an Eldar player, but a good Eldar player. So yeah, other than that, was able to have a nice win path, and just was 10 spots away, even with a 5-1 record of potentially making the top cut. Very, very stoked on that. The goal was 5-1. We hit it. Definitely would have been happy with 4-2. But yeah, it was a great weekend, man.
Yeah, overall really good. It was a good experience. LVO right now is up in the air. We don't know if it's going to regain its current glory of like the 2,000 players and this great experience. That the venue can support it. Yeah. It looks like. But I will give another shout out compliment. None of the tables were connected, so you had the capability to fully walk around your table, which was huge. It was fantastic. I know Vanguard Tactics, they put on a whole like beginner tournament, which was fantastic as well. So like if that was your first tournament, instead of playing in the main pool of LVO players, you could play in Vanguard Tactics tournament, and they would talk to you about like how to play at that competitive level and what a tournament is like in a very safe environment to help people get ready. Because I will say like LVO can be a bit of a shark tank, right? Like if you are not prepared, some of these lists are not casual lists. They can be a little mean, a little oppressive. Like, have you ever stared across from 3 Chaos Knights and a Great Unclean One, and your opponent asks you, like, can you kill these, giant monstrosities, and you can't because, you didn't think that was going to be a thing, and you just get table turn 2 because, you have some of the best players in the country. So overall, there are plenty of lessons learned. Hopefully FLG takes a few of our points of feedback, and we have plenty of more that we've thought about. But I strongly recommend you, our viewers, to put some comments down below, because if we think it's pertinent and we care about this kind of stuff, maybe we'll send an email, put something together just so FLG can take some consolidated, structured, important feedback, actionable feedback to actually carry that forward and make LVO a better experience for everyone. Because, I think we can all agree we want LVO to be something great.
Yeah. All right. I think that'll do it for the LVO recap, number 2. And yeah, I think that's it. We had a great time. Thank you for everybody who came up and talked to us. It was super great to interact with you all in the community. It was nice to meet some of you in person for the first time and make some cool connections. But do not forget that victory isn't given. It is forged, and it's forged right here on Mastercrafted. We'll see y'all next time.
See ya.